So Kring is the company where we're building health ventures and companies within energy, the one that I explained about earlier. So we have the fund and we come up with ideas and then we test them out. Many ideas are good ideas in your head, but not as good ideas when you actually test them out with customers. So we run that process again and again. Some of them, the timing is just not right. We did something about blood testing and the technology was just a bit too expensive compared to how big the market was at that point. Other stuff was like a chatbot based mental health assistant where we take the best from cognitive behavioral therapy, and we had a psychologist sit full time for more than a year, sit and rewrite the different protocols so people have an easy access as a supplement, you can say, in like when they're having a hard time, and also just building these good habits.
Talking with the experts.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. My name's Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. And Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners, and you can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. And today my guest is Mads Friis, and Mads is from Denmark. And his business is called Growth Island. And we're going to be talking about habits and the Nordic Biohacking. And I'll get Mads to discuss that and explain to you exactly what that is. But Mads is played different kinds of sports at high level and he's gone from doing that to discovering books by the Dalai Lama and Anthony Robbins. Mads has always been interested in personal growth and high performance. On his journey, he has completed different studies and degrees in psychology at Copenhagen Business School and Harvard University. In his research, Mads found that many of the resources focused 80% on the problems that we were facing and only 20% on the solutions. So he's on a mission to flip this statistic around to help more people. Welcome, Mads, and that's a very interesting topic. We were talking a little bit before we got on air about what the Nordic Biohacking is. So perhaps you could explain a little bit further about what that is.
Sure, and thank you for getting me on the show, Rose. So Nordic Biohacking is basically the art and science of optimizing your health, performance, and well-being. So what does that actually mean? Well, we like to start at looking at studies. So like, what are the scientific studies that are showing what works? So we love to look at these different graphs and see like what have proven to work on the majority of people. But we're also very aware that it works in the majority of people. So you might be an outlier. So we both look at, are you an outlier, but also what is it that the outliers are doing differently potentially? So we have a big focus on, can you measure it somehow? Whether it's blood test on, are you getting the right vitamin levels? Is it your stool that you can actually see like how is the food reacting in your body? Is it your heart rate, or just something as simple as, are you feeling happy? Typing it down, like I write a gratitude every evening, and that kind of gives me a check-in on how has my day been. So it doesn't have to be a biometric tracker, but some kind of idea of how are you feeling and becoming aware and adjusting according to that.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, and so how can we actually put this into practice in our daily life?
Yeah, so the first is really kind of understand the concept of looking at where do you find studies, or who can you follow that are actually spending all this time on reading the studies. And then is looking at which one seems to be like, what do you want to accomplish? That's the first thing. Do you want to get more energy? Do you want to get better sleep, which is also related to energy? What is it actually you're looking for? And then you start looking at what are some of these hacks, whether it is better sleep, that we know that getting sunlight in the early morning, that increases your melatonin production so you fall asleep better. We also know that not eating too late helps with sleep. We know that different kind of lights, blue light, can be really damaging for the eyes. So whether you wear these blue blocking glasses, or whether you have a filter like I do on my computer called Iris that changes the light. And at home, I also have different light bulbs that actually have it's some technology from NASA, and it has a different light spectrum. So optimizing some of those small things. And I would be glad to go into like a lot of the different things, Rose. But please let me know before I go on a
Oh,
long rant on.
please do. Yeah, I think it's very interesting how we can change our technology to better suit,
Great.
our lifestyle.
Yeah. So in Nordic Biohacking as well, we look at it's a mix of technology and nature, right? And we love the double-blinded studies, which is kind of like the gold standard. And then you have on the other spectrum is this kind of ancestral wisdom, which sometimes comes out as my granny told me. So some of these things, ancestral wisdom, like back in the days, we uh, we had the brain couldn't change, right? That was a scientific fact. The brain was fixed once you became an adult.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
But
it is
but
really.
but now we know that after you're an adult, the brain can actually still change. So this was a scientific fact for many years, and now we know meditation can actually change the brain physically. We have now studies, brain scans, where we can see that the brain changes. So meditation is something that has been that has been used in the East for thousands of years, right? So that goes to the ancestral wisdom that we might not have all of the studies on. We do have a lot of studies on meditation now. Hypnotherapy is another thing that is really effective in regards to reducing stress. There's an early study that shows eczema as well, that this app called Hello Mind can actually help with that. So there's a Danish study that looked into that. So some of these more like ancestral wisdoms, we also look at that and then kind of test it out on how do we feel ourselves. So that's kind of like understanding that framework to then get started on what can you actually test. And then the first thing is like, how do you use it as a business owner? Well, the good thing is figuring out like what is important for you as a business owner or as a full person. We know if we're not functioning well in our family, in our life in general, it's hard to be like the best business owner showing up. So sleep is a big thing for many people. So if you have sleep issues, you would first look at what seems to be the challenge. Is it that you can't fall asleep, that you're lying and ruminating? Then it might be meditation. It might be some breathing exercises. So you could do something like the box breathing. Box breathing is super simple, yet so powerful. So it's basically that you breathe in for 4 seconds, you count, you hold your breath for 4 seconds, you exhale over 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, and you do that around. It's like it takes a few minutes, and you'll feel that your nervous system is all going to fall down. You don't want to do fire breathing, Wim Hof breathing, right before going to bed, because that's going to give you a lot of energy. So it's like the different tools. Another thing might be you're not ruminating, but you're not feeling that tired. That could be very related to the blue light. And then it might be changing the light in your house or dimming down the light. So you'll see on my video, if you're watching there, that I have kind of like a more reddish light. It's not optimized because I'm in Cabarete, Dominican Republic right now, so it's not my normal home that's optimized with the right light. But that can be powerful. We know exercise helps. Ideally, you don't exercise around 3 hours before bed.
No,
We
well, that would be
also
a bit silly, wouldn't it? Because you've got all your everything would just be like elevated so much you wouldn't be able to sleep anyway.
exactly. So looking, but we also do know some people are different. And in regards to sleep again, we have different chronotypes. So we know these people. There's the theory that back in the days, someone had to be staying up at night, making sure to look after the tribe. Someone had to get up in the morning and so on. So it's also figuring out what fits best to our schedule, which of course have to fit into our work schedule. There's a ton of other stuff you can do with sleep as well. There's a small study that shows, I think it was men in Japan or somewhere in Asia, where I think it was 3 scoops of honey before going to bed was quite beneficial. If you're the type that often wakes up and have to go and pee in the night, it might be because your glucose levels are too low. So that can help to take a spoon or 2 spoons of honey before going to bed. So these different things, and that's part of the Nordic biohacking, figuring out what do you want to optimize, and then what could be the root cause of why you have some challenges, and then test it out and figure out, okay, we know this works for 80% of people, but does it work for you?
Yeah, Yeah, I might try that on my husband because he's always getting up and down during the night. So.
Yeah, fantastic. So don't give him too much water before going to bed. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And then some quality honey might actually just do the trick, or some kiwis. Weirdly enough, I can't explain what's in kiwis, but that is also shown to be beneficial.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know they're very, very healthy for you, and there's lots of benefit from eating them. So I guess you've got a management consulting background at some, pretty high level businesses. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, please?
Sure. So my background was studying psychology and business, and right after that, I went into management consulting in Deloitte, where a big part of what I focused on was strategy and very much performance management. So what makes people do what they do? How do you get teams that actually perform? And and today I also am a partner in something called Kring, where we build companies within health and well-being and energy. So basically, we have a fund, meaning that we can pay for our own team and we can put money into the companies. So we come up with different ideas, we test them out, and then we put more money into them together with some entrepreneurs. And we use a lot of these stuff as well, of like, how can we make sure that as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, which is super stressful, what are some of the mental things, and also being aware of talking with our teams about like, try and take some weekends off. It sounds simple, but us as investors as well, working all the time, there is a time for working hard, but we also know that some of your productivity do decreases at some point. um, Same thing as we know that if you have, there's a study from London University that showed if you have emails popping up, calls, and different things. We didn't have it with Slack and all of that stuff back then, but it's only become worse with Instagram and so on. Your IQ would decrease with 10 points.
Wow.
I am not that smart that I can afford 10 IQ points. I'm sorry, and some of the listeners might be, but 10 IQ points is the same as 36 hours of not sleeping. Or if you smoke pot, not a recommendation, you only lose 4 IQ points. So for some of the business owners listening to this episode that are probably always on or constantly replying to messages and so on, if you need to get some kind of deep work, you're gonna feel overworked and overstressed because you're not getting stuff done. So working with your team and suppliers and so on a way of having like times where you take calls and do that. For example, have 3 hours a day or 2 hours a day where you don't answer emails. And some of you are gonna be like, that's not possible. And that is true for a few, but the majority, it is actually possible to organize it that way.
Yeah, I try not to do my emails every day. I do them every day, but I try to set aside certain times of the day to do that. I've heard now I try to do scheduling of my own work time so that I don't get, by the end of the day, I'm not like drained and totally just a blubbering mess. So, and I think that and I've learned that through other mentors and coaches, that if you don't do that, then the quality of your personal life is decreased.
It really is. And so many of us, and I used to be as well, are always on. And it just means that the quality, as you're saying, with the personal life is so low. Like we all experience ourselves if we're together with someone that's constantly checking the phone. So finding a way, you might have less time with your family and friends then, but make sure that that time is actually really present, because people feel the difference. Often it's quality is more important than quantity.
Yes.
Someone being home and constantly being on the phone, that doesn't create the same kind of relationship as someone at home a little bit less, but that are actually present, that can leave their phone and be like, honey, I'm here for you right now, or kids, or like friends, I'm here.
Yeah, I agree. It's I think it's really rude if you go to visit someone and they're constantly on the phone with business or whatever. It's yeah, you're not in. What's the point of going there if they're not going to talk to you anyway? Because they'd rather talk to someone else.
I agree. And I do understand that you can have a point in your business where, like, you're not a business owner, you're a business operator, and you are hardly making any money. You need to like fight for every single client, And some of them, it might matter whether they get an answer in 2 minutes, whether in an hour or 2 hours. But I would really question whether how important is it, whether it's 2 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours, just to give those small breaks of being like, okay, now I'm fully present, and then I'm gonna check in an hour or two, and then I'm gonna answer it. Just having those like small, like half an hour or hours or 2 hours of really being present, that makes a big difference. And we know it matters for the brain as well, that we actually get the chance to relax and wind down.
Yeah. So I noticed reading through your notes here that you have a podcast. Is that right?
Yes,
And it's called Growth Island.
exactly. So I interview experts on how to be the best version of yourself. So I've always been extremely curious since I was a kid, and I found this was such a fantastic way to get access to smart people, help make something complicated very simple. So everything from medical doctors, psychologists, scientists, top athletes in the world, um, talking to them about like what is it that makes a happy life, or like if you have a disease, what can you do, or different aspects of life or life mysteries. So a lot of great sessions or lessons that I also use in my talks and when I work with people.
Excellent. All right. So I'll have to go and grab a version and listen to it. It sounds really interesting.
Thank you. There's more than 70 episodes now. Everything from Dan Poulet, Tony Robbins, breathing coach, to Ollie, who is a medical doctor and one of the founders of this Nordic biohacking movement, and wrote the book, The Biohacker's Handbook. So some really interesting and very diverse guests, into like the third best kite surfer in the world, Paula, who is just like traveling the world and going all in on living what many of us dreams about, telling a bit more about like how is it actually to live that life and what does it take to be one of the best.
Very lovely. And what is Kring? What is that exactly?
Yeah, so Kring is the company where we're building health ventures and companies within energy, the one that I explained about earlier. So we have the fund, and we come up with ideas, and then we test them out. Many ideas are good ideas in your head, but not as good ideas when you actually test them out with customers. So we run that process again and again. Some of them, the timing is just not right. We did something about blood testing, and the technology was just a bit too expensive compared to how big the market was at that point. Other stuff was like a chatbot based mental health assistant, where we take the best from cognitive behavioral therapy, and we had a psychologist sit full time for more than a year, sit and rewrite the different protocols so people have an easy access as a supplement, you can say, in like when they're having a hard time, and also just building these good habits.
Yeah, good habits are very important, whether you're a business owner or you're not. So I guess my next question would be, what are some healthy habits business owners can adopt to, I guess, live a better life?
Yeah. So as a business owner, and having run businesses myself as well, and running businesses, you need to have that like energy and peace of mind, right? We know this, like the more businesses you have and the bigger it gets, the more things are burning. So being able to have the overview, and to do that, something as simple as meditation. People are probably tired of hearing about it. If they haven't already gotten on the meditation trend, they're like, oh, not another person telling me about meditation. But there's a reason why when Tim Ferriss interviewed, was it 100 of some of the top people in the world, and I think it was like 80% of them were all having some kind of meditation practice. So whether it's just like 3 minutes a day, and some people say that's not meditating, but just do 3 minutes of like being calm. And if you don't have 3 minutes a day, you don't have a life.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I'm sure you could even probably do it sitting on the loo.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why many people spend a lot of time on the loo as well, because that's the break, right? But just thinking about what time, like how much time people spend on social media and so on anyway, right? So meditation is definitely one. We all know it as well as some of the basics, getting some kind of movement, whether it is that whenever you go to the toilet, you do a little bit of a stretching, or I have some software that takes a break in every 20 minutes, something called the Pomodoro technique,
Oh,
which
yeah.
basically means that you work efficiently for 20, 25 minutes, then you take 5 minutes break. I don't always take 5 minutes, but I just like get up, move, stretch, and get back to focus. Having that as a habit, having it as a habit of being positive towards your employees. We know that high performance teams, in average, you need 3 positive comments for every negative. And as a business owner, whether it's like you have a team or you're a sole entrepreneur, you need to interact with people. So you need to have a habit of actually interacting in a good manner. So a way to also cultivate that is writing down a gratitude journal every evening. What is it that you're grateful for? 3 things, small things. Another way when you have a team and you can cultivate a habit is whether you make a jar that you put down things that you're grateful for each other and take it up once a week. So you actually get an atmosphere and a culture of appreciating each other. If that balance is very low, if you already like are being so positive and acknowledging towards each other, that's probably not the one. But I would definitely go for the mindfulness. Do it when you like do some kind of movement so you get that break. And taking breaks, having that as a habit. So many people, they schedule meetings back to back. I definitely fall victim to that as well. I try not to go for 1 hour meetings, but go for half an hour, 45 minutes, because often whatever you schedule, how much time you spend that time. We know that to be true. So making a habit of potentially also scheduling 25 minutes meetings or 55. A study just came out yesterday, or like Microsoft did a bigger study with EEG measurements of the brain, and we could see the different areas in the brain, the different colors, according to how stressed people were. And they had made 2 tests, one where people had small breaks between meetings and one where they just went back-to-back meetings. And in full transparency, I also end up having days where I have back-to-back meetings and I'm not the one in control. And it just shows the brain is overactivated in regards to stress. So cultivating the habit of making it a culture in your organization to probably schedule like these uneven, like 45 minutes, 50 minutes or something else that allows you to have a small break before the next meeting, because otherwise they often get scheduled in like the full hour times.
Yeah, when I first started this podcast, I was trying to do 6 a day. And
wow.
Yeah, so I didn't schedule in like any breaks in between. And honestly, by the end of the week, I was totally exhausted. And I thought, no, I've got to change the calendar. So I'm only doing 3 a day now. So,
And that's also a lot.
yeah, I still find that I'm tired because of the time difference, and most of my guests are overseas. A lot of them are scheduled like at 11 p.m. So for me, it makes it for a long day. But yeah, I've learned to take the breaks now so that I can do other things. So it makes my life a lot easier.
And you speak to something super important as well, which is how do you manage your energy and not only your time?
Yeah.
So what kind of, for me, it was like I read this blog post once and I was like, why haven't I thought about this before? I like, this is so damn simple. But what kind of activities are really good for you? You know, for most people, having activities where you're talking with people and so on are better later in the day. Where in the morning, again, this is for the majority of people, and the whole promise of Nordic Biohacking is looking at what works for you, not just what works for the majority of people. So from the majority of people, the morning can be the deep work. So actually like getting the habit of blocking out, especially as a business owner, because we know what happens, like everyone wants your time. So blocking out time to actually get work done instead of always just reacting to what comes your way. So whether it's blocking like 2 hours in the morning where you're not reading emails or where people cannot get hold of you, whether it's just like once a week, that's also a habit that really makes a difference for a business owner.
Yeah, I think as business owners, we just think, just bowl in and do everything. And we don't look at the consequences of burnout at all. And, think we can just continue on. And we don't think that we'll ever get burnt out. But unfortunately, we do. And it's a nasty place to be.
It is. And the numbers are just like continuing to rise. But even like if you don't get to burnout, you're still not as effective. So it's like you still need to have that time. We know that the brain has something called focused and defocused. So we're still processing information and so on, even though we're not doing an activity. So Rose, I'm not sure about you, but most of my big ideas or best ideas, they come when I'm running, moving, if I am at the toilet, if I am in the shower.
So shower and toilet, I get my best ideas.
Yeah. It's funny, right? But when do you schedule time for having that space to come up with those ideas, except if you have a bad stomach, right? Like it shouldn't be a bad stomach or something else, it's just like the natural going there, like getting that time. So we know that it makes you more efficient as well, not just having like back to back constantly, like having to execute. And I fell in that trap when I was doing a startup where I was working 7 days a week from 9 to 11 or 2 in the night, every single day together with my co-founder. I had much high energy. I was like in my mid 20s and I was just on a mission. But what I didn't get to see because I didn't have that downtime was that I should have changed the team because I was executing all the time. Had I taken weekends off or something else, I would have been able to see that I should have done changes to the team much quicker.
Mm. Yes, we sometimes get blinded to the end goal, and we don't see what's going on around us, which is unfortunate for everyone involved, really.
It really is.
Yeah. All right.
What are
So
some of your top habits for staying sane as a business owner?
me, um, coffee, tea, getting up, having a walk, playing with my cat. I love my cat, and just talking to friends, talking because I have this podcast and I really enjoy meeting new people. So in between what my normal job is, I have podcast interviews. And so they really light me up because I get to meet people like you and, all sorts of different people. And it makes me happy because I find out different perspectives about different things.
Makes a lot of sense. The whole walking is also just so important. Do more walking meetings. Make that a habit. Like that we know that we act differently when we're actually doing some movement, and just sitting down all the time just doesn't give us the same energy and the same creative flows.
Oh, it doesn't, no, but I have a physical illness, so it's hard for me to move around at the moment, but that's being taken care of, so we'll see how we go. Anyway, so we've talked about your podcast. Have you written any books, Mads?
I've only written something about climate, which was many years ago. I am building a course on habits right now, and I will probably make that into a book right after, as it's a different medium and people prefer different things. But right now, I'm putting the last touches. I'm having the first test group starting the 10th of May. That's going to run through something that I've basically a workshop I've been doing with many corporates and groups of individuals that are formalized a bit more with some more focus sheets and so on, and that the process with the feedback.
Oh, well, good luck with it. I'm sure it will be a success.
Thank you.
All right. Well, so where can people find you, Mads?
Yeah. So my website, growthisland.com, is the easiest place to find. You're also welcome to find me at LinkedIn at Mads Mishak Friis. I can send that as well for show notes. Or on Instagram, I'm fairly active there. If you want to see more of the active life, then it's Mads M Friis. So Mads M and then my last name Friis, where I share a bunch of stuff as well.
Yeah, I've got your social links, so they'll go on the show notes anyway. So.
Fantastic.
Well, have you got any last words of advice for our listeners today, Mads?
Figure out what you're grateful for. It's sounds too simple, but often the best things in life are simple and free. And like taking the time to just stop up in your busy day, and especially as a business owner, there's always going to be problems. If you've been in business long enough, those small periods of time where things are just running smooth, it's really appreciating it. But taking the time even in the harder times to stop up and take that breath and appreciate the small things, I think that's probably one of the key things when you're running a business and you want to stay sane.
Yep, that's really good advice because sometimes we forget to be grateful. We think everything's really bad, but there are many things to be grateful for every single day. And when you're alive, you woke up in the morning, that's definitely something to be grateful for.
Fully agree.
All right, Mads. Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed learning about the biohacking. It sounds really interesting. So I will go and check out your podcast and have a listen. And I'm sure that I will learn something from that, as I learned from lots of things, which is great.
Thank you. Thanks for a lovely conversation.
All right. Have a great day. Bye.